How are we, boys and girls? Welcome to the Going Down Under podcast. I'm your host, Braam Hein, cruising koala on all social media platforms, and here we will be deep diving on all things health and wellness related. Hopefully, you're doing fantastic. I'm doing pretty great. I've had a lot to eat over the past few days, which ties in well with this episode because episode 30, first of all. So thank you for being along for this journey, and if you've been here since the start, I appreciate you. If you're just joining, hello, welcome. Hopefully you enjoy your time here. Hopefully you enjoy your stay. But today's episode is about the 5 most important foods for gut health. Gut health is an extremely important aspect of how people feel on a regular basis, how people respond to certain things, and it is something that is under the radar for a lot of people's nutritional philosophies, I guess, because a lot of people will focus on the protein aspect, the macronutrient aspect, even the micronutrient aspect, which is all very good things to focus on. But once we have those things dialed in, that's when we can focus on the lesser known portions of nutrition, which is fiber intake, all that kind of stuff, which ultimately leads to gut health. And gut health is extremely, extremely important because the most notable one is digestion, because that's obviously what people think about when they think about gut and GI tract and all that kind of stuff. You think of digestion, and that is a very, very key thing to do with gut health. But the lesser known things that people talk about in terms of gut health are how it affects your immune system, how it affects your hormones, how it affects your mental health even. Like, it affects your immune system by having a healthy gut microbiome. You're able to produce the right reactions within the immune system, because the immune system does feed off the gut microbiome axis a lot. And also hormones to do with being able to just feel okay and feel the right ways in terms of certain reactions that happen within your life. And also the mental health aspect as the gut-brain axis, which I've talked about in previous episodes, which is just how the brain is related to the gut, and the reactions of both impact the other. So having a poor gut microbiome or gut microbiome diversity can really impact how you think and how you feel on a daily basis. So getting both of those things in check through the things I'm about to talk about are very, very important, because you can be very astounded by how different you'll feel once you get these things in check. So I'll be talking about the 5 most important things, in my opinion, that affect gut health and how you can implement each of these things within your diet. I will say you don't want to implement all 5 of these things immediately, because you will probably have an immediate reaction. You probably won't feel very great immediately. Like, if you do continue all 5 of them for as long as you can, then you will eventually feel pretty good, like pretty soon. But it is a very sensitive thing to adjust heavily immediately. Like, you don't want to immediately switch your nutrition to try and help your gut, because if it's not used to it, then it's going to have a very strong reaction quickly. So I would advise, I'll say it again at the end of the episode, but advise implementing small changes over time, to which you will eventually get all of the changes into your nutrition and into your gut by the end of it, instead of trying to overdo it to start and then just feeling like poo for a little bit. Feeling like poo, get it? Digestion. Anyway, so I'm going to be talking about the 5 most important groupings today. And the first one being fermented foods. So fermented foods sounds kind of gross, and depending on what foods you like, it could be kind of gross. But fermented foods are just foods that have been fermented. So foods that are like aged a little bit, or just made in a certain way to which they have live bacteria in them. And you might hear live bacteria and be like, ew, that sounds gross. But the live bacteria in it aren't like the bacteria that you see like on like toilet seats or like whatever you like under your fingernails or whatever. It's live bacteria that's within the food that helps the gut microbiome, right? It helps balance it out because, oh my God, I keep hitting the table, I'm sorry. The bacteria that go into the microbiome then feed off of each other and then produce healthy gut flora within the microbiome, which then promotes microbiome diversity and then thus a healthier gut. So these fermented foods have live cultures in them. So if you might see tablets that have like forms of live cultures, like it says like 1 billion microbiota or whatever it is that's on the packaging. That's just saying how many different forms of and different strains of the cultures are in it. And obviously the more you have, the more diverse it's going to be. So foods like kimchi and sauerkraut are pretty diverse. And then foods like yogurt are the same, but not as diverse, which that's why going from yogurt to like a kimchi, you probably have 2 different responses because one is way more diverse. So you have to get really used to this first. You have to go on a journey of fermentation foods. So you can't just go and have 3 full servings of kimchi if you haven't tried to at least warm up to it, because then it's just gonna be like, holy God, and just kind of freak out a little bit. Not in terms of like you're gonna die, but you might poop out a lot. So foods like that include a lot of these probiotics. So that's ultimately what fermented foods are. They're just a bunch of probiotics. So you see like probiotic yogurt, which is just because it has a lot of fermentation in it and it has a lot of live cultures in it. So foods that include a lot of these probiotics are yogurt, kefir, kimchi, sauerkraut, that kind of deal. So implementing these foods into your diet, again, they're pretty easy because yogurt, I mean, people like yogurt, you can add some flavoring to it, add some other things to it. Kimchi is pretty easy just to add onto a plate. You can add it onto rice, you can add it on into soups, salads, anything like that. They're pretty easily implementable into people's routines. And then obviously kefir is just like a yogurt smoothie kind of deal, or depending on how thick it is. So you can just kind of act as yogurt. So having all of these probiotic rich foods, ultimately what they are, whenever you hear the word probiotic, it's just meaning that it has forms of live bacteria in it. They're pretty easily implementable into your diet. So moving on to the second one, which is prebiotic rich foods. So these two align with each other because if you combine the pro and the prebiotics into a diet, you get what's called a symbiotic relationship. So they're going to feed off of each other. So probiotics are the bacteria, like the live bacteria that you're putting into your gut to make it more diverse. And the prebiotics are what feeds the new gut bacteria. I get how this all sounds a little bit gross. I'm saying it out loud for the first time. And it sounds kind of weird. And it sounds kind of icky. I get it. Trust me, it's good. Your stomach and your gut lining are live, because obviously you're alive. So like they have processes that they need to do. And it's just the same as any other system, right? So prebiotics provide these gut bacteria with food. Well, like they are the food themselves, I guess. So this promotes the growth of healthy strains of gut bacteria. So it promotes the ability of your gut bacteria to reproduce and be diverse. Foods that include a lot of prebiotics are just a lot of different kinds of vegetables, especially onions, that kind of thing. Really ripe bananas. It's pretty gross, so don't eat those, I guess. But 2 easy ones that I feel like are very implementable into people's diets are garlic and oats. Garlic, you can add to anything and it'll make it taste nicer. You can cook with garlic, you can do anything like that. And then oats are just a thing that people just have in the morning, or you can have it as overnight oats, or You can put it in smoothies, or you can make it into pancakes. You can do whatever you want with oats. All these things contain a lot of prebiotics. So adding these into your diet with the probiotics, this is something that you can kind of implement together. You don't really want to implement just one without the other, because you won't get as many benefits as if you implement both. They're pretty easy to implement because, like you can you'd even cook onions in garlic for dinner, and then for breakfast have oats, and then boom, your prebiotics are set usually for the day. And then having these together is what's going to, again, promote the symbiotic relationship, and it will immediately change how your gut will react to new things within it, because it's already becoming so diverse because of this relationship. So you will have healthier bowel movements, you will feel better, and you'll have less inflammation because of the healthy reactions that are happening within the gut. So moving on to something that people think about when they think of oats, and that is fiber. So specifically kind of like plant-based fibers. So things like beans, lentils, leafy greens, that kind of stuff. This just promotes bowel regularity and the promotion of gut flora within the gut. So gut flora is just within the microbiome of the gut, just how diverse it is and like all that kind of stuff, and how healthy each form of bacteria is. So people think of fiber, they think poop. Makes sense, right? Because it just promotes healthier and more regular bowel movements. What fiber specifically does within the gut is it produces things like butyrate, which are short-chain fatty acids. And this helps reduce inflammation within the gut as it helps repair the gut lining. So you hear people talk about gut lining. If that's damaged, then it's going to impact how the gut reacts to things being inside of it. Pause. And it's going to affect how damaged or damage controlled you will be if you don't eat the right way, if that makes sense. So if you eat the wrong way for a little bit, if you already have damaged gut lining, then you won't feel great. That's when you're gonna get the bubble guts, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. That's when you're gonna get like IBS, inflammation, leaky gut, all that kind of stuff. So fiber helps repair that gut lining, and then so you have the barrier. So when you do go off plan for a little bit, it's not gonna be the end of the world, and you might just feel a little bit off for a little bit. You don't feel drastically off for a while, if that makes sense. And then so getting a lot of fiber from a lot of fruits and veg, a lot of leafy greens, a lot of seeds like flax and chia seeds, lentils, beans, those kinds of things are very fiber dense, and that's why people put them in their oats, which fiber is also in oats and that kind of thing. There are different kinds of fiber, soluble and insoluble. That just depends on those different strands of fiber are just if your body can fully digest it. I'm pretty sure insoluble. I'm forgetting what they are for some reason right now, but insoluble, your body can't digest it fully, so that's why it promotes like the thickening of a stool, and then soluble, it just helps everything go smoothly. So combining both of those within your diet will be beneficial. So moving on to the next one, which is not necessarily fiber or prebiotic based. It's something that people don't really think about when they think about gut health, and that's things that are polyphenol rich. So polyphenols are just antioxidants that are within foods. So if foods are polyphenol rich, that means they are very, very antioxidant rich, which helps with immune responses. And then what it also does is promote microbial diversity. So if you have a lot of polyphenol rich foods within your diet, you will have a lot of antioxidants, which when they're in the gut, that promotes the microbiome to become more diverse, because it doesn't usually experience a lot of antioxidants within the gut, right? That's really all I have on polyphenol-rich foods, but they're very, very important for microbiome diversity. These foods include things like berries, dark chocolate, Green tea has a lot. Olive oil has a lot as well. And then I think what's a lot of green vegetables, I'm pretty sure, have a lot of polyphenols, a lot of leafy greens. So, I mean, those are things that are pretty easily implementable as well. Obviously, green tea, you can just drink green tea. If you're drinking it at night, drink it decaffeinated because green tea does have caffeine in it. Cooking with olive oil, like not the the spray olive oil doesn't really have many polyphenols. Like the actual full extra virgin olive oil has a lot of polyphenols. And then the dark chocolate, you want to get the highest percentage for the chocolate because that's going to contain the most nutrients in it. It is higher fat content per one, but it's also less sweetened by sugars. So having like 95 to 90 plus, 85 plus, obviously 100% is very, very bitter. I like 95 personally. Shout out my mom, she just loves dark chocolate. So that's kind of how I got put onto that. I have 95 dark chocolate every day in my oats. Fantastic. I love it. And then obviously berries. I also personally love berries, so I have berries every day. I put it in my yogurt. I put it in my oats. I put it in pretty much anything that I can. Honestly, I love berries. So, and then frozen berries are actually more polyphenol and antioxidant rich because they're usually frozen upon collection. So then that's when they are actually the freshest and the most nutrient dense, because if you think about it, that's when they're frozen. So they will keep all the nutrients. They won't start to grow or become rotten over time. They will just stay in that exact state. So if you get fresher berries, they will taste nice. And if they're fresh from within like a day or so, they will still be pretty good. But the longer that you have them, the less polyphenol rich they'll be because they are growing older. Right. And the last one isn't necessarily a food group, but just kind of a food in itself, and that is bone broth. So bone broth is very, very good for your gut because it contains two main things. It contains a lot of things, but the two main things that it contains pertaining to gut health are collagen and glutamine. These two things really help soothe the gut lining, like I was talking about before with the fiber. If it is inflamed and if it is damaged, having bone broth will help ease the inflammation that is happening with the gut lining and help it kind of relax a little bit. That's why whenever people have leaky gut or inflammation or IBS, inflammatory bowel syndrome, having things like bone broth on hand and having them with rice or just having them as a drink can really help soothe that gut lining to help it relax a little bit and ease off that inflammation. If people have really heavy symptoms of have heavy symptoms of inflammation within the gut, that's when people will probably be prescribed to have a cup or two of bone broth in a day. I might actually have one today. I have bone broth. Yeah, I might do that. Anyway, so that's really important for soothing that gut lining. So if you do have like a trip or something like that and you go off plan a lot and you kind of feel pretty groggy because of your gut, having bone broth in some capacity will really help that. Like, so having things like pho or just having straight bone broth can really help that. How I like to have my bone broth is I just cook my rice in bone broth. I cook my microwave rice in bone broth. Plus, I think bone broth, you get chicken bone broth, beef bone broth, vegetable bone broth. Animal-based bone broths are better because they contain more collagen in them. But having these things on hand in rice, because I mean, they taste good anyway, and they just make the rice more flavorful, in my opinion. So that's why I really like that. And then that's how I implement it. It's pretty easy. That's about it, really, for bone broth too. But those are the 5 most important things for gut health. I will say some things to avoid just in general, like for gut health especially, limiting ultra-processed foods, limiting alcohol, and limiting sweeteners as much as you can. I'm a lover of artificial sweeteners because they're good for you. They are better for you than real sugar. They're like full-on processed sugar. Artificial sweeteners are better for you than those. but they have been seen to impact gut health and gut linings. So I will take the bullet on that. I do have a lot of artificial sweeteners in a day usually, but my gut's in pretty good check because I have implemented everything else pretty frequently. So I have good microbiodiversity. Artificial sweeteners don't affect me too much personally, so I'm okay with that. But obviously limiting ultra-processed foods and alcohol, just because that promotes inflammation within the gut, which then kind of counteracts everything that you're trying to do. So as much as you can, try to limit those. I'm obviously not saying eliminate them completely. If you can, do that. If you can't, that's normal and that's okay. So again, trying to implement one of these things at a time. So maybe if you aren't having any fermented foods, maybe trying to add some yogurt into your daily routine somehow, or at least a few times a week, and then also adding in some, cooking in some garlic, maybe as one of your vegetable choices, having some onions or some bell peppers in some capacity, and then just trying to have as much fiber in a day. Usually the guidelines are for every 1,000 calories that you eat, you should be eating roughly 14 grams of fiber. But usually people find it hard to get that, so at least 10 for every 1,000 calories. So if you're eating 2,000 calories a day, you should be having at least 20 grams of fiber, usually as a minimum. And then just implementing some polyphenol-rich foods, some berries, maybe cooking the onions that you're now having in some olive oil with the garlic and all that kind of stuff. And then occasionally, if you are experiencing some symptoms of inflammation within the gut, just having some bone broth, and then you'll be swimming. You'll be good. So those are the key things to improving your gut health. Hopefully you learn something. Hopefully you will start implementing at least one of these things in a day. And if you already are implementing a few of these things, then try to implement the things that you're not. And then let's see how you feel. Comment how you feel right now, please. I love you. But hopefully you'll stay tuned for next week's episode 31, and we should be swimming from there. Hopefully you're having a great day.